Apparently, we need to test our Thea the Tomb Angel once again because some of you guys have been speculating that the Hex Debuff does not work. So I ran a couple of tests for you guys and we're going to see it firsthand if it actually works or not. So let's jump right in. As you might notice, I also fixed my Thea the Tomb Angel in the sense that I gave her 100% crit rate. I kind of gave up on the dream of putting a Savage set and a Cruel set on this champion, right? So we now have 100% crit rate, 265% crit damage, but when I ran the test, I did have different masteries, so I will point that out in the short clip that I made for you guys. Also, on top of that, I want to point something out here because I've been looking for this menu forever, and I thought the Hex Debuff would kind of be in there. But when you go into the tavern and you hit this little information point here, and you go top left, facts and guides, and then from here you click on a gameplay, and then from there you click on a list of buffs and debuffs, you have access to all the buffs and debuffs in the game. I literally looked for that menu forever. Now I have it, but the Hex Debuff is not in there right now. So as for the definition of what it really does, I think we're going to have to use only the tooltip of the skill of Thea the Tomb Angel, which is this one right here, right? So Hex Reaper, what it will do is it will increase the damage by 50% for each Hex debuff on the enemy team. Stacks up to 300%. My first question was, is this the individual Hex debuffs on different champions, or is it the stacks of all of them, right? So if I load up Hex debuffs on 2 champions, 2 stacks of 5 turns each, do I therefore have 10 Hex debuffs? Therefore, I am capping out on my 300% extra damage, right? So that is also something we will confirm in today's short clip. Let's check it out. All right, so obviously this is recorded. It's a bunch of little clips stitched together. We have a few tests to run to kind of demonstrate that the Hex debuff is having an effect or not. Also, pay attention to the masteries, which are on the left for this first part of the test, and then we're going to change the masteries for the other part. We also do not have increased attack on this first one right here, but we do have a Royal Guard in the lead, which gives us an aura for increased attack. We also have Tuck on the team, but we did not apply the poison buffs on ourselves right now to power up our Thea the Tomb Angel. So let's go with this first test right here. Okay, so we're going to get a Hex Reaper hit without any Hex debuffs, all right? And bam, right there. Let's go forward one more frame. About 65k on most of these champions. They have decreased defense and weaken, decreased defense, weaken, decreased defense, weaken. They all have it. This guy just got the fear applied from Thea's passive, so it's not coming into play because the masteries, I do have the Opportunist mastery. Therefore, this would increase damage by 12% if the true fear was already on, all right? So that is something you also need to keep in mind. So as you can see, reasonable hit, but we're obviously not one-shotting waves here, all right? So now we're going to do this again, but we're going to try and apply Hex debuffs, which we've done, all right? So we got it on 2 of them. That means we had to take 2 turns before the mobs take a turn. We also only have decreased defense and weaken on most of them. I think they got it all. They do seem to have it all. We do have, unfortunately, 1 true fear there. I'm sorry, this is a fear? True fear? So we've got some fears on, right? So we're going to probably deal a little bit more damage because of this. We still don't have increased attack. We have the increased attack aura, and we haven't buffed up with Tuck yet either. So let's try and pay attention to this hit right here. Boom. Right there. So like we basically pretty much doubled our hit, right? From the previous one. So the Hex debuff doesn't look like it's increasing the damage from only the targets that have the Hex debuff, rather it is increasing it across the board. And what I'm thinking here is that this gave us 2 Hex debuffs, right? And don't forget, we can top off to 300% extra damage if we would have, I guess, 6 Hex debuffs total on all the enemies. How can we possibly get 6 Hex debuffs on all these champions? Obviously, you can't because there's only 5 of them. You would have to take multiple turns, so I don't think you're ever going to reach all those Hex debuffs, all right? Let's keep going here. The next test we're going to do, we're going to bring in, I believe, the increased attack from our Arbiter. All right, so here we go. Same thing here. Now we have the increased attack, which is applied with our Arbiter. We have decreased defense and weaken. We don't have decreased defense on the Tyrell. However, I will point that out. So this is not a perfect setup. But with the extra increased attack from the buff and no aura from Royal Guard, let's see just how harder we hit now on these mobs, which is a little bit harder overall. We can can see it on these two right here. So obviously the increased attack is coming into play. It can increase our damage, whether you use the aura or not, and the increased attack buff. This will power up her skill. We kind of knew that, but again here, no hex debuffs, all right? So this is not to her full potential. So now we're going to do this again with the increased attack buff. We're going to apply some hex debuffs, and we want to see how hard that is going to hit. So once again, we have decreased defense, weaken, decreased defense, weaken. We have 1 hex, 2 hex, decreased defense and weaken, and decreased defense and weaken, basically on all of them this time, all right? And here we go. We're about to do this other hit right now. That's sort of what I'm pointing out. Sorry, only 2 hex debuffs, and right there. Boom. So again, a little bit more damage because we had the increased attack buff, but it clearly shows that with the hex debuffs on, it does look like we're dealing almost double the damage on these mobs right here, right? And they didn't have the hex debuffs, so I'm thinking overall, it is working. But then I didn't stop there. I wanted to do a couple more tests, and I removed the Helm Smasher. I thought maybe that's what's coming into play. Maybe we're in fact dealing more damage because of specifically that. On top of that, I decided to bring in our Gerpa Duck here to increase the poison debuffs, or to put poison debuffs on us to increase our damage, all right? So for this first test, we have decreased defense, weaken. We don't have weaken on the Tyrell yet again, but we do have all the other buffs right here. So let's see how hard we're going to hit now with our Thea the Tomb Angel, and one more frame right there, right? So very reasonable for no hex debuffs. Once again, this one has no hex debuffs, and you can kind of see that we're starting to hit harder and harder and harder, all right? So I'm going to say that this is overall pretty reasonable. This is a frozen frame right there for you guys. So in this next one right here, we reset up the same thing, but we now apply hex debuff on 1 and 2 of them, all right? And we have the same thing, poisons on us, increased attack on us. Let's go for this hit right here. We're going to see how hard now we're going to hit with those 2 extra hex debuffs, which, if I understand correctly, is adding 100% damage to the Hex Reaper skill from Thea the Tomb Angel, all right? So here we go with her hit. It's about to go right there. Bam. 230k, 211k. So guys, we keep going up here, right? And I didn't really change anything else. So now what we're going to do here is one more test. I want to try and apply more hex debuffs, if that's even possible. It is, but you need to plan it out correctly. You need to reduce turn meter, increase turn meter. I also did not want to kill these mobs as I was doing some A1s with Thea because she can hit pretty hard, so I'm not applying decreased defense and weaken for the time being. So this is what you see here me doing. I'm setting up. We got 2 hex debuffs right now. Then we take, we boost up with our increased attack. We certainly want to have that up as well. We're going to put the poison debuffs from our Gerp as well to increase our damage. So let's just wait up here for this to set up properly. And then we increase our turn meter. Yet again, perfect. We put more hex debuffs. Unfortunately, we only get 1 more, right? It's a random hit. It would have been nice to hit 2 other champions. Now we have 3 instead of 2. So that's the big difference on this test, which is going to be the final one. Finally, we boost up here, and then we're going to get to our Thea the Tomb Angel, increase attack, of course. And then we try also not to apply any true fear on any of these champions, all right? I didn't want the opportunist mastery to come into play. So now we have it. Decrease defense, weaken, decrease defense, weaken. We have 1, 2, 3 hex debuffs. That is probably what I'm going to show here real quick. 1, 2 right there. Decrease defense, weaken on all of them. I don't see any... Actually, I see 1 fear on the top left mob. That's not perfect, but it is what it is, right? Thea will hit pretty hard with her A1, so she can apply fears as well from the A1 because of her passive. And now finally we're going to go into the Hex Reaper skill. Here we go. Last big hit. Bam. Almost 300k, 224k. This is one-shotting this wave. This almost hits as hard as my Seer. So guys, I don't know about you, but I think this proves that the Hex Reaper debuff actually kind of works, right? So let me go back to the gear of my Thea the Tomb Angel here, just so that you guys know what I use. I have 4 pieces of Savage, 2 pieces of crit rate. We do have an attack banner, crit damage here, crit damage on the gloves. So again, this is not perfect. I could increase this. Imagine having 6-star gloves. That would be number 1, but unfortunately still don't have that on a Savage set. We do have that 100% crit rate, 4.6k attack. The last time I showed her I had almost 5100 attack, but that's because I had 2 pieces of Cruel on top of this, right? So she was obviously hitting harder because of that. So I'm going to say that overall, the Hex debuff is working. Did I not test something correctly? Please let me know in the comments below. And obviously you could book her for this to work a little bit better. But if you want to power her up, she needs to take a lot of turns with her A1. It is too hard to set up for the arena. I think that's the key takeaway here, is that regardless of how you set her up to be a nuker, if you want her to hit really, really hard, it is going to be because you power her up with the Hex Debuff. And if I'm not mistaken, she has a reasonable multiplier on her A2, which is 3.5 times the attack. So by itself, the skill alone is not exactly on par with Foley or Trunda, right? It is not meant to be. If you want this to hit really hard, it is because you're going to apply some Hex debuffs, then it is going to increase this by quite a bit. But until then, I'm gonna say that by herself as a nuker, not the best, not the best. But with those Hex debuffs, if you manage to get that to work, number one, I think it's pretty insane. So guys, there you have it. Another quick test on Thea the Tomb Angel. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.